I have a gift. But when you say, I give my life to God, have you not raised the subject of death? How soon did Jesus begin to think about it? We don't really know. There is no evidence that he had a death wish, that he went in search of a cross. We don't have here some melancholy Lincoln, some brooding Hamlet, always looking for the sepulchre. We don't have here Bishop Ignatius, who upon his arrest wrote to all the churches between his home and Rome, saying, don't pray for me, now's my chance to die with Jesus. None of that. In fact, the gospel records give every indication that he tried to avoid death. Even John, whose Jesus is almost untouchable, says, and he withdrew, for his hour had not yet come. Luke says that he was comfortable in the day in the city because he was surrounded by a welcoming crowd, but at night he went out to the Mount of Olives. He tried to hold on to his life, didn't he? But the time came when he accepted what lay before him. When Carl Sandburg was still Charles Sandburg, before he changed his name to Carl, he wrote a little poem, little known, and I don't know if he addressed it to himself or addressed it to Jesus. Take up your cross and walk the thorn way, and if a sponge of vinegar be passed you on a spear, take that too. Souls are made of endurance. God knows. However, he came to it slow or soon. The thought of giving his life in an effective way impressed itself upon Jesus, but he found it very difficult to talk about with his friends. Matthew and Mark say he withdrew with them to the north country away from the crowds, and it was in the region of Caesarea Philippi that he first brought up the subject. Luke says they withdrew, and Jesus was in prayer when he mentioned it. And the reaction he got from them was not one of silence, as we do when the subject of death is brought up. It's hard to bring up the subject of making a will, but what a silence falls over the house. Oh, no, 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 don't talk of that. When he mentioned death, he did not meet silence among his friends. He met a storming protest. No! This will never happen to you. You are not going to die. We will survive. There is a way to survive. You will survive. And they were screaming there. Jesus screaming at Simon Peter, and Simon Peter screaming at Jesus as though they were trying to cast out demons. They screamed. Of course, Peter screamed. You don't accept the fact of death like that. What good is a dead Jesus? Life is the thing. Life is the thing. The tenacity of life. It's hard to die. Babies, just months old, have open heart surgery and live. Life is a tenacious thing. I remember when first I learned that. I was a boy, maybe 10 years old, chopping cotton. I don't know if that means a lot to some of you. You have a hoe and it's hot and you're in a field and you're cutting weeds out of the cotton. I came upon a snake. I didn't take time to figure out what kind of snake it was, because a snake comes in several categories, all of which are called snake. I killed the snake. I thought I killed the snake, but I had not killed the snake. Chomp, chomp, chomp. Finally, I went to my father and I said, I killed the snake, but it won't die. he said, you'll have to take the snake and hang it on the fence, and it will die at sundown. I didn't know snakes didn't die till sundown. I took the snake and hanged it on a fence, and the rest of the day I looked toward the fence, and the tail of the snake still moving, haunting me with life. I will not turn loose. And when Jesus said, I'm going, I will be killed, no wonder Simon Peter screamed in his face and said, no, we can survive. And in that bitter exchange, not bitter so much as loud and violent exchange, finally Jesus said, hush, no more of this. You represent to me a tempter. Get behind me. The voice that insists upon survival, survival, survival. No. In fact, you're wrong about me, Simon Peter. In fact, you're wrong about yourself, because the church that follows me must also take up the cross. Oh, no. You mean the church might die? Yeah. With one hand, he took his own cross. With the other, he handed a cross to the church, and the church has said with Simon Peter ever since, no, 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 we can survive. We know ways to survive. We can survive. I know attendance is dropping. I know the budget's going down. I know the public press is making fun of the church. I know they talk about mainstream Christianity on the way out. I know that, but we can survive. You can write to Colorado Springs and get these survival kits. And they're in tapes. There's some tapes in there by motivators, and there's the possibility thinking and all that. We can make this. We can cut back on the budget a little bit. We may have to take some of the money out of outreach and put it in a savings account in case we get a little low. I know we'll have to cut back on staff. We'll have to reduce our program. But we can survive. We can survive. We can do like some of the churches and have some special events. I notice a big booming church in Florida. Every once in a while they'll have a beauty queen come and say a little word for Jesus. Miss Okra from South Texas will now say a little witness for us. And they have basketball players, 7'8", come and say a word of witness, and the crowds are great. And there was a church in Atlanta. They tell me the place was full. Had a midget who was a professional yo-yoer, who did all these marvelous things with a yo-yo and quoted scripture for an hour all during that. And they say the place was packed. Now listen, we can survive. There are ways to survive. I know as well as you do that there is a lot of death around the church, a lot of deadliness about the church. You experience it, I experience it. I recall reading about Charles Dickens once attending a gathering of clerics, and he said the meeting was so dead, so boring, so dull, that after a couple of hours he said, may I make a suggestion? Let's move over to a table and join hands and sit in silence and see if we can commune with the living.